You know, usually when we sit down to do one of these deep dives, we're kind of acting like historians, right? We're dusting off old files, looking at events where the ink has been dry for, well, for decades.
Exactly. It's usually archaeological work. We're digging up bones to see how the dinosaur looked.
But today is completely different. We are not looking at a fossil. We are looking at a living, breathing creature. A story that is actively unfolding as we speak. In fact, we're looking at a story where the next major plot twist is literally scheduled for 4 days from now.
It is so rare that we get to catch a story right in that breath before the plunge.
Right.
But that is exactly where we are with the Jeffrey Epstein saga. And I know what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone thinks they know this story. You know the island, you know the plane, you know the ending in that jail cell.
Or at least you think you know the cast of characters. But a document has just been unmasked, literally unredacted, that throws this massive spotlight on a figure who has managed to stay largely in the shadows.
Or at least in the periphery.
For years. We are talking about Leslie Les Wexner.
And this isn't just about a name appearing on a list, like some kind of gossip column. If that were all it was, we wouldn't be doing a deep dive. It's about how that name appears, the specific legal language attached to it, and why a document written in, the absolute chaos of 2019 is suddenly causing a bipartisan political earthquake here in February 2026.
Right. So here's the mission for today. We aren't just reading you headlines. We have the actual FBI documents, the primary source material from the days right after Epstein's suicide. We are going to unpack the specific jargon, these terms like secondary co-conspirator.
And we're going to trace a money trail that seems to defy the laws of physics, or at least the laws of logical business practices.
And we're going to find out if limited evidence actually means innocent, or if it means something much, much more complex.
Because that distinction is what this entire next week of news is going to hinge on.
Okay, so let's get into the files. Set the scene for us.
Okay, let's go back in time. It is August 15th, 2019.
Context check for everyone listening. Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his jail cell on August 10th, 2019. So we are talking 5 days later. The media is just in a frenzy. Conspiracy theories are flying.
Right. The investigation is arguably at its most chaotic and critical point. The main suspect is dead. So the FBI's New York office, specifically the Crimes Against Children and Human Trafficking Department, is trying to figure out who else. They send out an email listing 8 people, and they use a very specific, very heavy label. Co-conspirators.
And that is not a word law enforcement just throws around lightly. I mean, person of interest is one thing. That just means we want to talk to you. Witness is another. But co-conspirator, that implies active participation in a criminal enterprise. That is a charging word.
Precisely. Now, for years, the public has only seen redacted versions of these files. We've just seen black bars over names.
Yeah.
But recently, a judge ordered those bars lifted on 5 of the names. And right there, alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, who we all expected,
of course,
given she's currently serving time, was Les Wexner.
Okay, so seeing Maxwell there, that makes sense. She was the right hand. But Wexner is a completely different tier of public figure. He's a titan of industry. But I noticed the document, it qualifies his listing. It doesn't just list him. It calls him a secondary co-conspirator. I want to drill down on that. What is the functional difference there?
It's more investigative shorthand, really, for prioritizing targets in a huge case like this. A primary co-conspirator, like Maxwell, is someone they believe was operational recruiting, facilitating physically in the room.
Okay.
Secondary implies a different role. It could mean financial support, it could mean providing the venues like the houses or the planes, or it could mean participating in the network without, necessarily organizing it.
So secondary doesn't mean innocent, it just means different role.
Exactly.
Right.
But here's the phrase that Wexner's legal team is holding on to like a life raft. And honestly, if I were his lawyer, I would be doing the exact same thing.
I think I know the one. The email explicitly states there was limited evidence of Wexner's involvement.
That's it. Limited evidence. It notes he was served a subpoena, but it flags the evidentiary file as, well, as thin.
And if you look at Wexner's defense, which we should, to be objective here, this is the cornerstone of his entire argument. His spokesperson has been very clear this week. They say Wexner fully cooperated. They claim he was a victim who was duped by a master manipulator. He provided background info when asked, and then, according to them, he was never contacted by authorities again.
The whole narrative from the Wexner camp is basically, I was a witness, I was a source of background info, I was not a participant. And if you just look at that phrase, limited evidence, in a vacuum, you might be inclined to believe it.
You might think, okay, maybe the FBI just cast a wide net in the panic of August 2019, caught him in it, realized there was nothing there, and just moved on.
But we don't look at things in a vacuum here. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
Context is everything. And this is where that document gets really, really interesting, because Wexner wasn't the only one with that limited evidence tag. This is the critical aha moment for this deep dive. You have to compare apples to apples, or in this case, co-conspirators to co-conspirators. There was another man on that same August 2019 list, Jean-Luc Brunel.
Right, the French modeling agent. Founder of MC2 Models, a huge, huge figure in the fashion world, much like Wexner.
Correct. Now, in that same 2019 email, the FBI noted there was limited evidence against Brunel, too.
Wait, the exact same phrasing.
Verbatim, limited evidence. So if you were an analyst reading that email in 2019, you might have drawn the same conclusion about Brunel that people are drawing about Wexner now, that maybe the FBI didn't have much on him.
That maybe he was just on the periphery.
Exactly. But history tells us a very, very different story about Jean-Luc Brunel.
It certainly does. Despite that limited tag in 2019, French authorities arrested Brunel just a year later, in 2020. And the charges were not limited. They were horrific. Rape of minors, trafficking of minors for sexual exploitation.
The limited evidence wasn't a reflection of his innocence. It was a reflection of what the FBI had in hand at that specific moment, 5 days after Epstein died.
And Brunel never even made it to trial.
No. He died by suicide in a jail cell in Paris before he could face a jury. But the point stands, and it's a crucial one for understanding what's happening with Wexner right now. The limited evidence tag is not an exoneration, it's a snapshot.
A snapshot of an investigation in its infancy. Yeah.
It sounds less like a clean bill of health and more like a we haven't opened the safe yet.
That is a chilling parallel. It forces you to completely rethink the weight of that document. It's not a verdict. It's a status update from a confused moment in time.
Exactly.
But let's zoom out for a second. We keep saying Les Wexner, and I think for a lot of people, especially if you're younger or just not into business news, the name might be vague, even if the influence isn't.
Oh, for sure.
We aren't talking about just some random rich guy who flew on a plane once. We're talking about a guy who shaped American culture.
No, absolutely not. If you have been to a shopping mall in America in the last 30 years, you have walked through Les Wexner's brain. You have lived in his world.
He is effectively the architect of the modern mall experience.
He is. He founded The Limited, but he also built a massive empire that includes Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie & Fitch, Bath & Body Works, Express. I mean, he didn't just sell clothes. He defined American beauty standards for decades.
He decided what was cool and what was sexy for at least 2 generations. And his power isn't just commercial. I looked into his footprint in Ohio, and it is staggering. In Columbus, the man is essentially a feudal lord. You have the Wexner Medical Center at Ohio State University, the New Albany Company, which basically developed an entire wealthy suburb from scratch. His name is on everything.
So we are talking about a man with immense resources, immense local power, and a reputation to protect. This isn't someone who can just disappear. And this is the man who handed the keys to his kingdom to Jeffrey Epstein.
And that relationship is what is so baffling to everyone who looks at this. It started in the late 1980s. Wexner hires Epstein as his financial advisor. But it wasn't a normal client-advisor relationship, was it?
No, not even close. Usually a financial advisor, suggests stocks or manages a specific portfolio. Epstein was granted full power of attorney.
Which means he could sign checks, buy and sell property, hire and fire people, move money without Wexner's direct approval.
Exactly. He was deeply embedded. He was a proxy. And the allegations, which have been reported in places like Vanity Fair and the Wall Street Journal for years now, suggest Epstein allegedly siphoned vast amounts of wealth from Wexner for decades.
We're talking about a transfer of wealth that included a Manhattan mansion, one of the biggest in the city, a private plane, and tens of millions in cash.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the friction point, the timeline. This is where the defense starts to crack a little bit for me. Wexner's story has always been consistent. He claims he was duped, he didn't know about the crimes, and specifically, he claims he cut Epstein loose after the charges in Florida came down.
Right. Let's look at that calendar. That would be around 2006, when the solicitation of prostitution charges involving minors became public in Palm Beach. Wexner's narrative is, I saw the charges, I was horrified, I ended the relationship. A clean break.
That's a sensible story. It's what you would expect a CEO to do. But the documents, and specifically the financial records, they tell a much messier story.
They complicate that clean break narrative significantly. Records show that Epstein continued to act as Wexner's money manager as late as mid-2007.
So that's well after the Florida charges were public. That's after everyone knew what Epstein was accused of.
Correct. And we have a very specific receipt, a smoking gun of sorts, that makes the "I cut him off" defense very hard to believe. In 2007, Epstein's foundation made a donation of $2.5 million to the Ohio State University.
Okay, on the surface, a charitable gift. Rich guys give to colleges all the time. OSU is a great school.
But look at the mechanics of the transaction. The money came from Epstein's foundation, known as the COQ Foundation. But the funds originated from Wexner. It was Wexner's money, sitting in Epstein's control, being moved by Epstein. And what was the money for?
This is the part that gets me. This is the detail that you can't really explain away.
It was for the Les Wexner football complex at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center.
So let me get this straight. You claim you fired this guy because he's a sex offender. You claim you cut ties in 2006. But in 2007, this same fired sex offender is using your money to pay for a building named after you.
Exactly. It defies logic. You don't have your former money manager handling multi-million-dollar naming rights deals for you if you've supposedly severed the relationship. It suggests an entanglement that persisted long after the public breakup.
It suggests that the breakup might have been for PR while the business continued in private. That is the record scratch moment. You can say you cut ties in a press release, but the money trail is still moving. And money trails rarely lie.
And that contradiction is likely exactly what investigators and now Congress are zeroing in on. Because if you lied about when you cut ties, what else might you be lying about?
Which brings us right up to the present day. Because this isn't just history anymore, this release of the co-conspirator list has triggered a massive reaction right now, in February 2026. And what's fascinating to me is the political alignment here.
It's incredibly rare. Usually everything is partisan. One side shouts, the other side defends. It's tribal. But here, it seems like everyone is angry.
It's a bipartisan pile-on. It really is. I was looking at the reactions this morning. On the right, you have Representative Thomas Massie from Kentucky. He's been very vocal on X. He was posting about a well-known retired CEO being redacted for months, and then when Wexner's name was finally revealed, he was right there amplifying it, basically saying, "I told you so."
And then you have Representative Nancy Mace, also a Republican. She is not mincing words at all. She publicly asked on X why Wexner isn't in jail. I mean, that is a direct challenge to the Department of Justice.
That's a sitting congresswoman asking why a billionaire is walking free. But then, across the aisle, you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York. You couldn't get more politically distant from Thomas Massie if you tried.
Right. Yet Rep. Ocasio-Cortez criticized the DOJ for redacting the name in the first place. Her argument is about transparency. She's asking, why was this hidden from the public for so long? Who are we protecting?
So you have the populist right and the progressive left agreeing that something smells fishy about how this name was kept in the dark. It's a convergence of drain the swamp and hold the powerful accountable.
And that political pressure is not just venting on social media. It's converging on a single date. And this is why we are doing this deep dive today, February 12th, because the clock is ticking down to February 16th.
4 days from now.
Les Wexner is scheduled to be deposed by Congress, specifically the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform.
This is huge. We are talking about an 88-year-old billionaire who has largely stayed out of the public eye regarding this, hiding behind spokespeople and press releases, being dragged in front of a committee to answer questions under oath.
And remember, this follows an email from December 2025, just a couple of months ago, where Wexner was named in communication about potential co-conspirators. So the heat has been turning up for months. This isn't a sudden ambush. It's the culmination of a pressure campaign.
So now he has to go on the record. And he doesn't have the luxury of a carefully crafted PR statement.
No spin doctors in a deposition. The question is, will he stick to the "I was just a witness" defense? And more importantly, will the committee have the receipts? Will they ask about the 2007 donation?
Will they ask why he gave Epstein power of attorney? Will they ask about the secondary co-conspirator label?
It feels like a showdown. You have the limited evidence memo from 2019, which Wexner can use as a shield. He can wave that paper and say, look, the FBI cleared me.
But clearly the House Oversight Committee thinks there's enough smoke there to demand answers in 2026.
And that is the tension. The FBI in 2019 said limited evidence, yet here we are 7 years later, and the scrutiny is more intense than ever. It suggests that perhaps the evidence isn't so limited anymore.
Or perhaps the definition of what constitutes involvement has shifted. So let's recap what we've uncovered here, because it is a complex web, and I want to make sure the listener walks away with the full picture.
We have a retail tycoon, the man behind the brands in every American closet. We have a 2019 FBI document that lists him as a secondary co-conspirator alongside convicted traffickers.
But with that crucial limited evidence disclaimer that we now know, thanks to the Jean-Luc Brunel parallel, might not mean much at all. It might just mean we're not done looking.
And we have a timeline of money, specifically that 2007 football complex donation, that directly contradicts the claim that Wexner cut ties when the Florida charges hit. It creates a massive hole in his alibi.
It really makes you wonder about the power of redaction. How many years did that black bar over his name protect his reputation? If that name had been public in 2019, would his legacy be different today?
That is a fair point. But I think the bigger question, the one I want everyone to think about as we head toward this deposition on the 16th, is about the nature of the evidence itself.
How so?
Well, think about it. If the FBI noted limited evidence in 2019, and yet Congress is dragging Wexner in for deposition in 2026, what changed in the last 7 years? Did the evidence grow? Did new witnesses come forward? Or is limited evidence simply a placeholder for evidence we haven't found yet?
That is the question. Is limited the same as no? Clearly, Jean-Luc Brunel's case proves it isn't. And if the Oversight Committee has found something new, something that wasn't in that 2019 file, February 16th is going to be a very bad day for Les Wexner.
And we might finally find out what the government really knows. We might finally see what was behind the black bars.
Well, I know I'll be watching the news on February 16th. This story isn't over. It feels like the next chapter is just starting. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure to dig into the details.
Keep your eyes open and stay curious. We'll see you next time.